Shavua to everyone. I want to thank our sponsors for this week, Don and Robert Honig, Lidishmat, Robert's mother, Chayachayna Bat Gershon Eliezer, and Hinda, whose 70th yahrzeit is today, and Shomesh Van Aliyah. Thank also our weekly sponsors, Lunan Stewart Paul, Inishmat, Lunan's father, Yaakov Ben Yitzchak, whose yahrzeit is also today, as well as Linishmat Yenta Rivka Bat Shmuel. Thank Tzipi Grunstein, children and grandchildren, Linishmat, beloved husband, father, and grandfather, Harry Meir Grunstein, Tzvi Meir Ben Moshe Yonatan, whose 7th yahrzeit is on Wednesday, Aleph Adar. Thanks Saint Nisim Gratko, Linishmat, Traga Feivel Ben Sender, and Dina Bat Avraham Aleim Shalom. Our anonymous sponsors is Chufer for Shlema for Get the Rivka Bat Esther Shifra Shetichya, and Chai Yoful, Linishmat, their beloved son Hillel, Avasham Yaakov Sheyichya, and Julie Richard Ehrlich, Lidishmat Bracha Miriam Bat Yona. In this week's Bi'ava V'Emunah, Rav Dov Bigun mentioned something in the Sedra of Mishpatim that really is actualia, it's current events. The Torah tells us that God advises Moshe, and here the Jewish people, before the Chet HaMaraglim, we're weeks away from entering the land of Israel, conquering it, and starting to build our model Torah state on that land. God says it's not going to be so simple. Lo agarshena mipanecha b'shana echad. I am not going to drive away the inhabitants of the land in 1 year. Pen tia aretz shmama v'rabba aleh chayat hasadeh, lest the land become desolate and the beasts of the field multiply against you. Instead, what is going to happen? The exact opposite. Me'at me'at agarshenu mipanecha. God says, very slowly, I'll drive them away out of the land. Ad asher tifreh, until you multiply, v'nachalta et haaretz, and then you'll be ready to inherit the land of Israel. And in fact, what happened then is what's happening today as well. Even when Yoshua ben Nun conquered the land, entered the land of Israel, he didn't conquer the entire land. He was able to drive out some of the hostiles, but not all of the hostiles. And in fact, many of the hostiles remained in the land of Israel through the period of the Shoftim. Who was able finally to drive out almost everyone who was inimical to Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel? It wasn't until the time of David HaMelech, 4 centuries after we left Egypt. And it really was only until the era of Shlomo HaMelech, when the Beit HaMikdash was built, I think it was 480 years after we left Egypt, only then did we achieve tranquility in the land of Israel. Rabbi Gun notes, Nachon Lachshav. It's the same thing today. The patterns repeat themselves. And if I may, my first 2 books, A Prophet for Today on the book of Yeshua, and Judges for Our Time on the book of Shoftim, essentially make this point repeatedly, taking events from the books of Yeshua and the Shoftim and relating them to our situation today, because that's the era that we're in. We all wish that we could have entered the land of Israel in the late 19th, early 20th centuries and have a state declared, our sovereignty established, and those who lived, the few people really, relatively, who lived in the land of Israel would have accepted our sovereignty, because most of the people who became what's considered today, Palestinians of a millennium, they arrived in the teens and 20s and 30s once the Jews developed the land and built factories, and the Arabs from across the Middle East flocked to the land of Israel in order to find jobs. Imagine what would have happened if in 1948, and the state was declared, there was no war, everybody accepted it. No, in fact. There are hostiles remaining within the truncated Israel of 1948. There are hostiles remaining after 1967, and there are hostiles remaining today. Some in Judea, Samaria, Gaza, some within the Green Line, as they say. Many hostiles. It's ma'at agarshenu min haaretz. It's going to take time. Time until v'shati et gvulcha Miyam Suf ad Yam Plishtim, until the boundaries of Israel are delineated from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean, when our sovereignty over the land is acknowledged by all. And the question is, why does it have to be like that? Why did God say, Ma'at ma'at argashana min haaretz? And I think, yeah, it's true. You can't arrive in a land where there's no industry, there's no agriculture, you need people to work the land. The Medrash says that the Risham or the Tzevet, Latzadikim, they become our assistants, our crew. They're to help us find our way in the land. That's all true. But I think the message then and today is not to take the land of Israel for granted. It takes self-sacrifice. It takes sacrifice and self-sacrifice. It takes hard work. It takes endurance. It takes resilience. Nothing is given to us easily. And even though God smoothed our way, He insisted we do the fighting as well. And that we build and we plant and we clear brush and we build factories and we do what's necessary to establish our Torah state in the land. If God had just driven out the nations of the land, the hostile, the pagan nations of the land, in order to facilitate our entry into the land of Israel, and done it all at once, we never would have achieved anything on our own. We wouldn't have had that sense that we work for it and we claimed it, and therefore it's ours with God's grace. No, everything takes time, and therefore patience, resilience, understanding, and tenacity as well. Not to give up because hardships appear or enemies seem to be relentless. Not to give up because ultimately victory will be ours. Vishatid Bucha will be fruitful and inherit the land. Shavua Tov.